system failure listeners. Nate here, Brian over there. Brian, how are you doing, sir, on a snowy Sunday morning?
I'm doing all right, Nate. How are you?
Well, it's a football Sunday morning. You know, if you're going to have some bread and circus, there's no more picturesque way to have it than with a backdrop of snow. And indeed, in Gillette, at Foxborough, Massachusetts, at Gillette Stadium this afternoon, we're looking at 40% chance of snow for the game. So we should see some flakes drifting down, and maybe that'll soften up the Texans' pass rush.
I just can't imagine what it's like to be one of these poor bastards who roots for a football team in the Bay Area or what have you, where there's no chance of snow during the game.
Yeah, we watched a little bit of football together yesterday, you and me. I put a $5 on the Bills game, and man, did I get a taste of the emotional toll that being a Bills fan must take on those poor fans. It's just, they just have every chance to win and just can't put the final nail in the coffin. Tale, I guess, as old as time up there in Orchard Park.
At least since the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they went to those 4 Super Bowls, lost all 4 in a row, and 88 through 92, is that 88? One of the, but I mean, geez, it was just, you're just like crawling out of your skin watching the game. Anyway, excited for the Patriots to take the field today. It's going to be awesome. I do feel like the rest of the league probably feels bad for us New England football fans, just because it's been there's like 7-year-olds walking around who've not sniffed the Lombardi trophy you get when you win the Super Bowl. And I just feel like all those other fan bases, I know their heart goes out to us. And so I'm sure that everyone's rooting for the Patriots to win today.
It's funny, the Steelers have won like a Super Bowl 20 years ago?
I guess, yeah. Was it? They won one in... They won one in like 2008 or something like that, but didn't they... I guess they went to a Super Bowl and lost to Aaron Rodgers in 2015, so I think that's about right, yeah.
Well, the Steelers just aren't driven by that same sense of desperation that the Bills are, and, they can lose in the first round and, have Mike Tomlin resign, and people are like, I don't know, I just don't sense the same pressure.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. The other big football, bread and circus news was that the quarterback of the Broncos the stud quarterback of the Broncos injured his ankle on the second to last play of the game. So the victory cost them their quarterback, and so the Patriots managed to win today. It'll be off to Mile High to face the now crippled Denver Broncos, and former Patriots, backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham will be under center for the Broncos if we can manage to get past this game today. So, yes, indeed, it promises to be a glorious afternoon of football watching and pizza munching for you and me, eh, Brian?
It sounds good.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, though, yesterday you came over, and when you came to my house, you had in tow 4 cans of Czech Pils beer, which we split up, and the week before I had made some French cooking. I had been making some braised short ribs, and the braised short ribs require some Cabernet Sauvignon. You got to pour it in the pot. So when you came over last week, there was, we had like a half bottle of wine or something left over. So you and I had a glass of wine each. And that made it seem like a good idea to go to the Hannafords at the halftime. And, we got some Czech Pils last week. And I slept terribly last week after we had the Cabernet Sauvignon and the 2 beers each. And then last night I slept terribly again. So I think, dude, I just can't even have the 1 or 2 beers to enjoy my game is the sad reality. It's just I really have been sleeping so well lately. It's absolutely devastating when I get a terrible night's sleep. It's like that Renee Mathis says in the James Bond film, Quantum of Solace. Bond is quite sauced on their flight. And Bond he's had like 5 of these martinis, and he's trying to get Renee Mathis to have one. And Renee Mathis is like, it will only keep me awake. That's how I feel. It will only keep me awake. It's the worst. I feel like, even one drink is just a devastation. I think that's the sad state of play for me, Brian. Did you have any tossing and turning last night after we had 2 beverages over the course of like 5 hours or something like that? It wasn't it was just the lightest touch of beer. Disaster every time, apparently, for me.
Well, it is poison, so it makes sense. I guess I slept okay. I think I woke up at some point, but then I fell back asleep. The FDA came out and said that there was like a recommendation of drinking like 1 or 2 alcoholic drinks per day if you're a man, and like 1 if you're a woman, and they just did away with that under RFK's regime.
Yeah. I remember on that show, The Office, there's Stanley, the jovial black salesman. He's like a large fellow, and he's like, I like to have a glass of wine at night for the antioxidants. I always think about that line and how when the FDA changed, or whatever governing body changed that recommendation. I think alcohol is just a disaster, and we should all steer clear. Maybe the Muslims have a good point that those intoxicating spirits are the work of the devil, or what. That's what I think. I don't know if Islam would specifically say it's the work of the devil, but they do forbid its consumption, and that seems to be wise. I don't know. Ugh.
All right. Well, no booze in 2026.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, in a little bit of Substack, a little bit of system failure Substack housekeeping. I've started this Sub Rosa Club for paid subscribers. I'm starting to get enough of them where I felt like I had to do something for these people besides just say, well, you're supporting the author. But I had 2 problems with the way I was doing a very long email within like a paywall break and then the Sub Rosa Club content below it. The issue was just that two issues. One, the emails were just too long for like one email. Like I would get a warning that some email services are going to concatenate this email and cut it off because it's just too long. So that was an issue. And then the other issue was discoverability on the Substack platform itself. Even though the entire free essay is there at the top, the fact that there's a paywall anywhere in the post gives it that paid tag, and no one wants to click on a paid tag for a post for a Substack you're not already subscribed to. So I just made a new section over at systemfailure.org for, we've got the main feed for the weekly essays, we've got the podcast feed, and now there's a third one, the Sub Rosa Club, and I just put a banner at the bottom of the emails. You just click that banner, and it will pull up your Sub Rosa Club content. So it's just one click away. That seems to be a better way to do it. It makes the emails short enough so I don't get that warning about concatenation. And furthermore, it removes the dreaded, paid with a lock symbol that I do not want anywhere in my content. So that's what I've been doing on that front. I guess this seems really, I'm pretty excited about it. It seems like a really efficient way to do things. I love the fact that you can just tap the banner and it takes you to your Sub Rosa Club content. So anyway, good talk.
Well, only the coolest people hang out at the Sub Rosa Club.
Yeah, yes, that is exactly the idea that I would like to get the ball rolling on. Okay, so other news this week. The Tucker Carlson podcast out of Bryant Pond, Maine. Tucker had his brother Buckley on. I mean, these are some clunky names that their parents give them. I don't know what's up with the but there was just a little clip where the Carlson brothers were like describing the state of Maine. The podcast was just amusing more than it was informative, but I just thought this description of the state of Maine was kind of interesting. And so I propose to play this clip now. It's only about 90 seconds long. And I should love to get your unprepared, unvarnished reaction to this description of the state of Maine. So I wonder if we could roll that clip right now, Brian.
Okay.
In fact, it's such a rarity. I remember exactly where I was when I first had this conversation, and it was with you, and it was in the state of Maine, which is obviously wonderful, but also something about the state of Maine is very close to whatever's going on around us that we can't see.
Exactly.
It's happening in Maine a lot more than anywhere else.
The membrane is thinner in Maine between this world and the next. There's no question about that. It's not
very much.
It's not a light state.
No.
It's a heavy state. You know what I mean?
There's a reason Stephen King, when he at one point had talent and one point had a God-given talent, because you can't read his early stuff, you can't read The Stand without saying this guy is using God-given talent.
Oh.
There's a reason why all those books actually take place in Maine.
Oh.
And it's not just because he's from Maine. It's because something going on in Maine.
And that's been, I think, recognized for a long time.
Yeah.
And it exceeds my understanding. I can't even guess. I do know that the first transatlantic television signal was broadcast from Maine.
Oh, yes.
In a town very close to us.
Dish is still there.
Dish is still there. I hunted next to it.
I flew over it.
Yeah.
Patrick.
But the point is, it's like there's something about its geographic location, its geography as well that, I don't know, there's something about it.
Yes.
So the membrane of which they speak, they're talking about some kind of membrane between, I don't know, like the spiritual dimension and our own.
You've guessed it. Yeah, they were talking about like demons prior to that. So that is exactly what they're referencing there, Brian. What do you think? Is there any? I mean, okay. Well, I will just say this. I lived in Florida for 8 years, and like Florida is much more fast growing, has a much more youthful population. There's all kinds of construction and new developments and new subdivisions and tourist attractions and all kinds of things going on in Florida, but it lacks a certain gravity, as the Carlson brothers were just observing. And so a little bit of what they said rang true for me. But what's your reaction, Brian? Agree? Disagree?
It sounds, I think Tucker, he says a lot of crazy things, and this might be one of them.
Well, maybe you're right. Just for a little bit of background, it's 1962 was the first transatlantic television broadcast. And they are quite correct. The dish that there was like a Telstar satellite, or I forgot the name of the satellite, but the dish is up there in North Andover. It's just past Sunday River. If you're going north in Maine, it's out there in the Maine woods, and that's what they're talking about. I do not really see where the first transatlantic satellite, signal fits into this whole thing with like the membrane between the unseen spiritual realm and the physical day-to-day humdrum reality that we all inhabit. I don't know if I quite feel that, but I do think, like I already said it, but I do think that there's a gravity here that doesn't that certainly is not present in Florida. I guess that's all I can really say.
Let's see. I guess I think of rugged, worn down mountains with icy skiing in the winter.
Yeah.
And I think of I think like, Tasmanian devil on the mud flaps in trailer parks. And like, a lot of like rundown economies.
Yeah,
ailing main streets.
Yes, yeah, there's like a rust belt element to Maine for sure, with the paper industry in a state of decline with the advent of electronic communications. So a lot of the mills have closed down that used to economically support entire towns. But when I think about the inhabitants of Maine, I think of like hardy people decked out in flannel. It is a totally different world than what they got going on down in the Sunshine State.
I mean, I guess what you could say about Maine is there's a lot of places where you could see the stars at night.
Yeah. Yes. That's one thing. One of the I was chatting with someone on Substack who I interact with a lot. This man is an Aussie expat who runs a farm in the Philippines, and we were talking about the night sky. And when we go to our dad's house, we live in the city, and our dad's house is just 45 minutes north of here. And with the difference between what you can see in the night sky here in the city versus 45 minutes north is shocking. Every time I notice the stars, I'm like, wow. I mean, I wonder how much of a disservice we're doing to ourselves by cutting ourselves off from what beat poet Allen Ginsberg referred to as the starry dynamo and the machinery of night. I do wonder if, I do think that, if you don't have television, you don't have the Patriots game blasting all night, and the only thing to really watch is the night sky, before the advent of electronic lights, and it's just the greatest show on earth. And it gives you a sense of scale or context, or it lets you know where you belong in the cosmos. So I think that something is definitely lost when we are divorced from the night sky, as we modern people usually are. And you're exactly right. In Maine, we're maybe a little bit less divorced than in some of these other places.
I don't know. Maybe we should go out, try to find that bend in the river that Tucker talks about, where I guess supernatural things happen, and experience them. Maybe we can get Sasquatch to appear.
You think there's any credence to their observations about Mr. King, the noted author Stephen King, who resides here in Maine, is perhaps our most famous resident, noted Red Sox, fan, and I mean, do you think that there's do you think that he's tapping into something? I mean, it's kind of like The Shining, the book that Stephen King wrote, what the Tucker and Buckley are describing there on their podcast, but I don't know. I guess I'm kind of sharing your view, they might be overstating the case just a smidge about the state of Maine here with their dramatic, telling. They only live here part-time, obviously, and so they just come here for vacation, so they may have a little different view than a year-round resident like you and me might have, eh?
Well, I think it invites a grander line of inquiry, and one I've been thinking about. But, I guess we embrace, we are open to considering, like aliens and interdimensional beings and, I don't know, things in spirituality and what have you on this podcast, right? And so it just kind of begs the question as to what is the truth of those things, I guess. And if you are, if spirits like roam the earth, I mean, it's like a really well-kept secret, right? And, you can, maybe there's like aliens, and maybe there's time travelers, and maybe there's spirits. These are all like outside the box ideas that might be crazy. In the aliens one of some kind, and maybe those are time travelers, I think have maybe like the most evidence. Like there's that whole crazy thing with the probes in the sky, like over New Jersey and like the rest of the country that we were talking about a couple months ago now. And then there's, the whole government talking about, the UAPs and the testimony of Commander David Fravor. Although it all could just be like a advanced technology that's kept on the hush-hush. Oh, that's almost the same thing as time travelers. Like, I don't know if it's just the government that has access to this advanced technology, or maybe a small group of people who have, they're like, in the Planet of the Apes, they'd be the apes, and we would be the unwashed masses or whatever. And they have access to this technology, and it's, kept a secret kept alive in Masonic temples at the highest order or something like that. So, I mean, that all seems somewhat plausible. But for the idea that, spirits, like that life after death, and that when you get reincarnated, it's not just in some distant dimension, basically unrelated to this, but in fact, after you die, your spirit could maybe come and visit me or something, and, vouchsafe the revelations of the ever after or something. That seems like the least probable thing to me, because it doesn't seem like there's any real evidence other than the ravings of crazy people.
Well, I think you're over the target here, Brian. I mean, this is the thing that this is the animating idea behind the system failure suite of ideas. That is, that the ruling class defines reality for the rest of us, and that it's the moments when the economic system seize up and stop functioning. Those are the moments when people look towards their emperors to see if, in fact, they're wearing any clothes or if these people have been naked all along. And I think that I think that Platonism. To me, when I think about something like Plato's allegory of the cave, and then I think about the lights in the sky over New Jersey in November of 2024, I see a direct connection there. And the reason I do is because Plato invoked shadows in his allegory of the cave, right? His suggestion was quite literally that the experience we're having is like flickering shadows on a cave wall. Right? We are seeing a puppet show, a puppet pantomime, cast on a cave wall, and we're mistaking that for actual reality. And I just think that Plato's use of shadows is perfect, because what is a shadow? It is a two-dimensional projection or slice of a three-dimensional reality. And so Plato he didn't have a word like dimensionality, but that is what he's invoking here, dimensionality. And so why Plato was carrying around those Platonic solids. He had he's often portrayed with these wireframe models of like a dodecahedron or a cube, or an icosahedron or a tetrahedron. And is the icosahedron a Platonic solid? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. The point is that like a cube, like a hexagon, like the system failure logo, a six-sided, geometrical two-dimensional figure, is the 2D version of the cube, right? If you look at a cube, if you take a 3D cube and you cast a shadow, you're going to get a distorted hexagonal shadow, right? So Plato, he doesn't have the word, he doesn't understand dimensions in the way that Isaac Newton would later understand dimensions and formulate calculus. But he's clearly, this is what he is gesturing emphatically at. And Plato thought that he called the unseen realm, he called the realm of ideas, right? The thing that casts this shadow that we experience. And you can just see how important are this idea of a Platonic ascent out of an illusory realm that we live in now to this higher realm. That idea became before Christianity, the Gnostics looked at that and said, well, only an evil God would trap us in this lower dimensional reality. Right? And the Neoplatonists reacted to that and said, well, it's just that we're distant from God. That's the reason for all the horror and suffering. It's not that God has trapped us in an evil prison. It's just that we should be striving to ascend towards God. That was the Neoplatonic idea, and this was the idea that obsessed St. Augustine before he came up with the modern version of Christianity, where the ascent out of this flawed realm to a higher realm of perfection was to be accomplished through moral acts and good deeds and things of this nature. And so you can just see how that idea impacts history. Obviously, the Christian Church takes over the Roman Empire, and the other Platonic schools of thought have to go underground for a while until the Renaissance, where they reemerge as Renaissance alchemy, like Renaissance magic, like alchemy. But notice here that like Christianity takes over the Roman Empire when the empire is in a state of collapse. Renaissance magic takes root in Europe at the very tail end of the Middle Ages, with the feudal system of the Middle Ages, which replaced Roman slavery, is in a state of a collapse. So here we are. We had the fall of feudalism and the rise of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism, and here we are now at the end of that whole process. And once again, right, the economic gears that turn at the heart of the economy that we all live off of are starting to seize up and not function so well. And the ruling elite, who project a certain reality for the rest of us, are losing control of the narrative, just like the Holy Roman Emperor did in the late Middle Ages, or just like the Caesars did during the fall of Rome. They've lost control of the narrative, and now the lights in the sky are back, and people are starting to wonder if what we've been told in school, what we've been assured of in science class, is actually so. And you mentioned time travel here. Well, that's dimensionality, right? I mean, obviously, we say it all the time on this podcast. But you've got your 3 physical dimensions and your 1 temporal dimension, and that animates the flawed realm that we experience today, and it gives rise to this sense of being an individual versus, me being Nate versus you being Brian. Now if it weren't for time, right, you would if you could see all of time at once, well, we'd both be bodily connected to our mother, right, and our mother would be bodily connected to her mother, right, because it would be a long the geometry would be, you are like a tree branches, splitting, halfway up the tree, the trunk splits into 2 branches, and the 2 branches split into smaller branches, and so on and so forth. If you could see all that at once, right, your sense of being Brian would be obliterated. It would be annihilated, because you would be like bodily contiguous with your ancestors and your descendants, right? So I think that extra dimensional possibilities are exactly where we are as a society, and the people are waking up to this en masse as our economic system starts to collapse and authority dissolves.
Well, it's a funny thing. Just people. Well, to bring it back to like Tucker's testimony in particular about the thin membrane here in our fine state of Maine. Well, people just have like questionable testimony and like wild superstitions.
Yes.
And, so the Scientologists, I'm not really an expert on Scientology, but, they believe in these thetans and, like, they basically these evil beings that, like, feed on your soul or something like that, right? And then, the Shen Yu is in town performing.
The anti-communist dance trio, dance troupe.
Yeah, the Falun Gong there, who also run the Epic Times. And people on Reddit that post with something like, cult warning, because you have to like go to some kind of camp and train like endlessly to be part of the Falun Gong. Is that true?
Show. Wow.
And their spiritual leader like also believes in like, I don't know, walking through walls, but in particular that evil aliens have come and influenced humanity, and that's why we see so many, evil things. And then, well, I mean, for like a long time, just on the topic of superstitions, people believe like in these crystals and what have you, and well, they just inverted the food pyramid. So apparently, the food pyramid we had was exactly backwards.
Well, I mean, that's. I remember in fifth grade we had a lengthy, like a whole month was devoted to this food pyramid, which recommended 6 to 10 servings of grain per day.
Yeah, at the base of the food pyramid. And so to your lengthy diatribe, well, it is hard to imagine that, we don't live in some kind of, I mean, the universe must be grander in scope than just our humble existence here on the planet of Earth. And so, it seems like the lights in the sky are perhaps an indication or a hint that is the case, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but it also is just crazy because, I don't know. I guess I think of Scientologists as crazy. If any Scientologists want to come on the podcast, the thing is, it doesn't even sound that crazy. It's just it's like the same story.
Yeah.
So, something about their application seems cult-like to me. So I don't know. Maybe we should join the Church of L. Ron Hubbard there.
Well, look, I do think that during the great ethnobotanist Terence McKenna, whose nasally drone can be heard on YouTube for any number of hours, he would always make the point that the Holy Roman Empire, they had their society on lockdown, and no one was everyone just was Christian, in the 1200s and the 1300s. And then disaster befell the economic system, and suddenly everyone's casting horoscopes and grinding up gems and consuming them. Trying to turn lead into gold in the alchemical labs of Europe. I mean, that's the sort of time we're in right now. The authorities have screwed the pooch once again, as they inevitably do. And the idea we're just going to have to be open-minded during such times, because realize that the map of reality that we've been handed is not representative of the territory. It is convenient for the economic interests of the ruling elite. And that is what is the fascinating mental battleground that we're all sort of the mental chessboard that we're all sort of thrust onto as the capitalist economic system grows long in the tooth, as all things of human artifice eventually must.
Well, just one more thing I wanted to say is that, trying to get people to believe in interdimensionality or time travel or aliens, it's like when in Harry Potter when they're trying to get the Muggles to believe that Voldemort is back.
Yes. Yeah, it's it's a tall order to have to explain that to someone who just exists within a pre-manufactured paradigm of reality and believes that reality to be bedrock, right? To be real. So you just realize it's a projection.
Well, the only real reason to not believe that Voldemort's back is because the establishment says so.
Yes, that's it.
And you have to, ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. With that said, I put all this whole line of inquiry about the Falun Gong and the aliens and the Jesse Michaels interview with that Russian Federation guy, which we spoke about on prior podcasts, and this alien abduction experiment. As well as those tridactyls that Jesse Michaels went and visited, that they did MRIs on.
This is Jesse Michaels, the former producer of Eric Weinstein's The Portal podcast, and now he makes his own American Alchemy podcast and gets every big name in the crazy UFO space on his podcast, and he nails the facts. And whenever someone references, one of his podcast guests references someone else, he'll play the clip of of exactly what that person is referencing, so you can just get to the primary sources as much as possible.
Which is a shocking amount of editing. It would take forever to go find that 2-hour podcast and find the 30-second clip that pertains to the thing that the guy said. That's a heroic feat.
It took me 45 minutes to find the clip about Maine from Buckley and Tucker. It was brutal. Yeah. Yes.
Well, what's the Peter Thiel? That's the guy that he's friends with. And I don't know if I trust Peter Thiel. It does make me wonder about the whole operation. Well, the point I was going to make is that ChatGPT said that this whole line of inquiry was not a good one, in that, I don't know. Well, it was saying that these tridactyls are fabricated, in that, I mean, the control on society is in plain sight and not hidden. And to some extent, I don't know, it's questionable how helpful it is to think about aliens and interdimensionality and whatnot. I don't know. It is well, obviously going down conspiracy rabbit holes is it can be unproductive, as the oh man, who are the crazy Trump supporters? You know,
QAnon?
The QAnon
Yeah,
is
yes.
as is evidence in maybe January 6th and all that. So I don't know. I guess I'm of a mixed opinion about it.
Yes, balance is needed, right? You don't want to spend all your time going down conspiracy rabbit holes. You get farther and farther out there. You eventually become unable to relate to your fellow human, right? Because you just are in a totally different reality than everyone else. And so it wouldn't do to be, cut off from the rest of society because you have gone too far. But you also don't want to be a patsy who just believes whatever you're told. Okay, I guess they're saying it's true. It must be true, right? You don't want to. You'll turn yourself into a useful idiot, right? So balance, right, is in all things.
Well, I think if you, I don't know, went too far down the rabbit hole, but a rabbit hole that was manifestly the truth, I mean, you'd have to accept your mantle as being, an outcast in society, like appearing to be a raving lunatic.
Right.
But if you yourself could somehow master interdimensionality or summon the dead or something like that,
you could become the man from Brian. Yes, we used to know him. He lives up in the mountains now. Every once in a while, he descends with his white beard and his crazy ravings. He's out there totally isolated from the rest of us. That could definitely, but you would be right. You would be able to master reality in a way that other people wouldn't.
Well, that's the future that awaits the system failure listeners. So good luck.
Well, speaking of strange men living in mountains, I do have a delightful quote to titillate our system failure listeners about Hassan-i Sabah, whom the Crusaders termed the old man of the mountain. Now, the story about Hassan-i Sabah is that he ran a territoryless state from this castle in Iran, which currently the Iranian government is renovating and turning into a tourist destination. The story is that the classic tale is the legend of the three schoolmates. There's Nizar, who these three guys, Omar Khayyam, this guy that wrote the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. He was a poet and an astronomer / astrologer. And then there's this other guy Nizar, who is the Nizam al-Mulk, who is he went on to become the Grand Vizier to the Seljuk Turkish Sultan, and Hassan-i Sabah, who would go on to become the old man. These three guys were schoolmates, and they agreed when they were young that whichever one of them rose to prominence first would take the other two guys with him. And so the first man was this guy, Nizam, who, like I say, he rose to become the Grand Vizier of the Seljuk Turkish Empire. And Nizam, he gave Omar Khayyam, he didn't want a political appointment. He wanted to just go to his tower, look through his telescope, and write his poetry. So he got an annual stipend to do that. And then so the Grand Vizier invited Hassan-i Sabah into the Turkish court. And there, things did not go so well, and eventually Hassan had to kind of be shunted out of the court, and he was so bitter about this that he went and founded the assassins, the Hashashins, there in Alamut Castle. To hear, I'm blanking on the name of the man who predicted he had the crazy radio broadcast where he predicted 9/11. What was the name of that guy? I can't believe I'm blanking on the name here. He had the Hour of the Time podcast. I'll just pull it up on the internet. Bill Cooper. Yeah. Really ordinary names like Bill Cooper sometimes are hard to remember. Anyway, his story was that Hassan used trickery. The example he gave was to invite his best student into the fold and say to his best student, the rest of the class, I need to help. You need you to help me with an illusion for the rest of the class. We're going to put you into a hole and cut a hole in a serving platter and put that around your neck so that it looks like your head is on this platter. Looks like it's a decapitated head on this platter. We'll put hog's blood around it, and so it will look like it's your decapitated head. And I will pretend as though I have executed you, and I am reanimating your decapitated head, and that will amaze the rest of the students so that they will do whatever I say. Now, Hassan belonged to the Ismaili sect of Islam, right? So Islam, there's the Catholics and the Protestants in Christianity, or let's say not the Catholics and the Protestants. There's the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox. Christianity is kind of split here, and Islam very similar. They have the Sunni and the Shia, and during the High Middle Ages, the Fatimid Caliph in Cairo and the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad were the same sort of rivals. It's still this way today. Like the Sunni, like the Arabs tend to be Sunni, and the Persians tend to be Shia. That's still the way. That's still the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East to this day. And the Ismaili sect was a Sunni sect, They actually, the Ismailis were specifically Neoplatonic, right? Neoplatonism was something that arose in North Africa. St. Augustine of Hippo was from North Africa. He was a Neoplatonist. And even though the Roman Empire, put the kibosh on Neoplatonism when it adopted Christianity as the state religion, Neoplatonism continued underground and affected this one specific sect of Islam. And so, at any rate, the Seljuk Turks were allied with the Shia Persians, and after Hassani Sabah gets tossed from gets tossed out of the court of the Seljuk Turks, he obviously, to them, the Ismaili sect is a heresy. To the Shia, to the Shia Turks, right, this Sunni Ismaili sect is a heresy. And so after Hassan gets tossed, that's when he goes to his fortress to continue his Sunni Ismaili, practices, and he does this trickery on his students.
With the hog's blood. With
the hog's blood, right? And the other thing is drugs are involved here, right? This is where the word assassin comes from, the hashish that he would have his students smoke, right? So the story is that he had this garden, filled with hot chicks and, good food, honey and yogurt and whatever, and he would have people smoke the hashish until they were passed out, and then transport them bodily to this garden, and then have them smoke more hashish, and then transport them bodily back to Alamut Castle, and then tell them that they'd visited paradise. And if you do whatever Hassan tells you to do, you will get access to paradise after you die. And this made the initiates to the Assassin's Guild willing to sacrifice themselves to kill whoever Hassan instructed them to kill. And that is how he gained political power over the Muslim political scene of the High Middle Ages, when the Crusades, you had Franks coming to lay siege to these various cities,
Well, so what happened with the hog's blood ritual? Did it just work and his followers were devoted to him, or?
It sure worked. It cemented this idea that to hear the lightest utterance of Hassan is to obey instantly, right? And so the finale to that tale is that Hassan would then his best student, who had his head on the platter, simulating a decapitated head talking. What he did after that is actually decapitated the guy, betrayed him, actually decapitated him, carried the head around to really drive home the illusion that this decapitated head had been talking. Absolutely crazy.
Well, man, that's the kind of thing that would really hijack your cognitive abilities.
Yes.
If I went to this dude's castle and started smoking hashish, and then I was, unbeknownst to me, moved to some garden with hot chicks and milk and honey and what have you, that would really do it to me.
Yeah. Well, the historicity is a little bit questionable here, because the three schoolmates their ages are a little bit too far apart to make that story, really possible. So there's and that story really only started to circulate in the 1800s, so it's not entirely clear. But I just wanted to, just to ground this crazy tale of the Assassin's Guild in some kind of actual reality, I shall now read the passages written by the great legendary historians Will and Ariel Durant. And hearing them talk about the assassins back in 1950 is very, very interesting. Here we go. Nizam was humane but intolerant. He mourned that Christians, Jews, and Shiites were employed by the government, and he denounced the Ismailite sect with special violence as threatening the unity of the state. In 1092, an Ismaili devotee approached him in the guise of a supplicant and stabbed him to death. The assassin was a member of the strangest sect in history. About 1090, an Ismaili leader, the same Hassan ibn al-Sabah, whom legend allied with Omar and Nizam, seized the mountain fortress of Alamut, which means eagle's nest, in northern Persia, and from that stronghold, 10,000 feet above the sea, waged a campaign of terror and murder against the opponents and persecutors of the Ismaili faith. Nizam's book charged the group with being lineally descended from the communistic Mazdakites of Sasanian Persia. It was a secret fraternity with diverse grades of initiation and a grand master whom the Crusaders called the Old Man of the Mountain. The lowest degree of the order included the Fidei's, who were required to obey without hesitation or scruple any of their leaders' commands. According to Marco Polo, who passed by Alamut in 1271, the master had arranged behind the fortress a garden peopled like Mohammedan paradise with quote, ladies and damsels who dallied with the men to their heart's content, unquote. The candidates for admission to the order were given hashish to drink. When stupefied by it, they were brought into the garden, and on recovering their senses, they were told that they were in paradise. After 4 or 5 days of wine, women, and good food, they were again drugged with hashish and were carried from the garden. Waking, they asked for the lost paradise and were told that they would be readmitted to it, and forever, if they should obey the master faithfully or be slain in his service. The youths who complied were called hashashin, drinkers of hashish, whence the word assassin. Hassan ruled Alamut for 35 years and made it a center of assassination, education, and art. The organization long survived him. It seized other strongholds, fought the Crusaders, and, it is alleged, killed Conrad of Montferrat at the behest of Richard Coeur de Lion. In 1256, the Mongols under Hulagu captured Alamut and other assassin centers. Thereafter, the members of the order were hunted and slain as nihilist enemies of society. Nevertheless, it continued as a religious sect and became in time peaceable and respectable. Its zealous adherents in India, Persia, Syria, and Africa acknowledged the Aga Khan as their head and yearly pay him 1/10 of their revenues. Quite a story, and there you can see where the Assassin's Creed video games get their inspiration from. This, I think, is really important for, well, when you want to talk about secret societies and mystery schools where the lower orders are kept in the dark and promised a secret if they can ascend rank to the higher orders, like the Freemasons. Well, this is a prime historical example. And it really existed. It's absolutely nuts. This guy, Hassan, without having any territory of his own, was able to greatly influence the politics of the Near East during the High Middle Ages. It's a great story. I always like to reference it, when I can. And I just was reading Will and Ariel Durant's, The Age of Faith, A Story of the Middle Ages from 1950 this week. Came upon that quote and could not resist the temptation to share it with our, vaunted system failure audience.
Well, if you had one of these illusions perpetrated on you, yeah, your ability of logic would just be, you'd be at the mercy of Hassan there. I guess it makes you, I don't know. I wonder if we're having any illusions perpetrated on us right now.
Yes, that's it.
We're unaware of.
This is a microcosm for how society works. The entire thing is a mystery school, and we, the profane, are kept in the dark. That is until the organization stops working well. And then that's when we stop and start rubbing our eyes and blinking and looking around like Plato's pilgrim, Plato's prisoner chained inside the cave, watching the shadow puppet walls, the shadow puppet play out on the walls. We're just like that prisoner, except for when the shadow puppet stops working, the shadow play stops working. We start looking around and rubbing our eyes and wondering what else is going on. Who's the one casting these shadows? Why are we chained in a cave? What's going on? And so, the instance of the Assassin's Guild of the Middle Ages is a prime example of the way that society is structured, and which is to say, it's a fugazi, right? And I think that the Jeffrey Epstein thing, really shows, it's really an interesting line of sight into the true machinations of the way the ruling elite actually run society. It would seem that sexual trafficking and blackmail is something that is rife. To that point, there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal today. I'll just read the headline and the subheadline. That's all we need to do. But it's a Wall Street legend in his penthouse sex dungeon is the headline. And the subheadline is, Howard Rubin fell and rose again as a star trader in the 1980s. He's now landing in charges that he trafficked and abused women. And the quote is, I don't care if she screams. Absolutely creepy, man. We really are in this age. So we mentioned the fall of the Roman Empire. We mentioned the collapse of feudalism in the late Middle Ages and the brewing crisis of capitalism we're living with today. Appreciate that, during the fall of the Roman Empire, there was a new piece of communication technology introduced to society that revolutionized everything, right? It was the bound book, right? Before that, they had big, long scrolls. And the bound book was something that early Christians were early adopters of. The Codex is what it was called back in the day. The Codex allowed the Christians to present Christians on one side of the empire and Christians on the other side of the empire could be assured they were teaching the same teachings, right? They were coordinated. They presented, in other words, a coordinated challenge to existing power structures, and they were so successful that the Roman ruling class had no choice but to accept Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire during its twilight, even as the barbarians, were queuing up at the gate. That's fascinating stuff. And then, of course, the Middle Ages, we've got the printing press. Similar idea, right? All hell breaks loose. You get the Reformation because of the printing press. And then today we got the internet. And the internet is giving us, a real line of sight into what's going on, how the ruling class actually runs their affairs. And the results are shocking beyond anyone's wildest nightmares.
See, Epstein should have... instead of blackmailing his victims, I guess, or his targets, he should have made them believe in his, supernatural powers by transporting them to a garden paradise. Although I suppose the trafficking comes in with populating your garden paradise with damsels to dally, with your targets there.
Notice that sex is to the fore in both all these examples here.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that was a wild line of inquiry.
Yeah. So one final Lincoln log to lay on this log cabin here. You mentioned Jesse Michaels. He used to produce the podcast for. I guess would we call him? What would you say Eric Weinstein is? I guess I wouldn't call him
a thinker.
Yeah, he's got a PhD, but he doesn't call himself a physicist. He has another word, but he's the man is a genius when it comes to physics, and because of that science background. He got invited to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion, right, in Manhattan. Right, Jeffrey Epstein was very interested in the sciences. Right, he held a conference on gravity out on his crazy island in the USVI, and that's why Stephen Hawking was on Epstein's island because the sciences were just a part of this whole weird sex trafficking thing. So when we talk about dimensionality and the construct of time versus physical dimensions and calculus and Isaac Newton and Plato and all of this. I mean, it's all a tangled skein that we try to deracinate here on the old System Failure podcast.
Yeah, and what Weinstein reports about Epstein was that Epstein himself was obviously not interested in gravity, but his backers apparently were.
Yeah, he's a construct, is Weinstein's testimony, if I've got that right.
Yeah, pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild stuff, man. Well, I mean, we've now gone. I mean, this was all supposed to be the first half here. We've now gone well past any hope of taking a break. So, what say, Brian? We abandon the idea of taking a break today and dive right into some of these topics we had planned for the second half.
Sure.
I guess the one that I really want to just mention is Scott Adams, the Dilbert man who has passed away this week, and just to not really pour out any of this coffee, for Scott, but to figuratively or symbolically, pour one out for our man there. I was really, to me, I don't know how much I agree with Scott Adams on things, but for me personally, the demolition of the Bernie Sanders 2016 presidential candidacy during the primaries was absolutely crushing. It was a betrayal. That means that I can probably never vote Democrat again, although I did up and register as a Democrat so that I could vote for Graham Plattner in the upcoming Maine senatorial primaries this spring.
I'm sure you can be forgiven for doing so.
Yeah, well, I can't be forgiven because it turns out that now Maine has just switched from a closed to an open primary, and so the measure was unsuccessful. And so I have to wait 90 days from, it's coming up, I had to wait 90 days from the November election to change my party affiliation again back to independent, because the stank of having Democrat next to my name is, after what happened in 2016, I will never consider voting for them again, outside of very specific or strategic circumstances. And so for me, when Scott Adams called the 2016, he predicted that Donald Trump would win the 2016 election in August of 2015 after the first Republican primary debate. That's an absolutely stunning feat of prediction. And for this, this is the thing that I remember Scott Adams for. And Brian, I remember that it was also a big deal for you because you read Scott Adams' book about persuasion, Win Bigly, did you not?
Man, I didn't read that book. I read How to Fail at Everything and Still Succeed,
that's it, yeah.
Which is basically says to, have like a process and not be focused on the outcomes. But I was reading his blog leading up to the 2016 election, and Scott Adams was basically able to identify what Donald Trump was doing,
Yes.
which was, I guess it's persuasion, but he understands. I mean, the Donald says all kinds of crazy things, and then what he does is kind of a different question.
Yes.
And people get caught up in the individual words, for better or for worse. And he was just able to see the strategy. And now it's like, you see like Gavin Newsom trying to do like a Donald Trump impersonation on Twitter, and hopefully, I don't know, I don't. Well, Gavin Newsom was mandating COVID lockdowns, but also going out and having, secret dinners.
He was up in the French Laundry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be one thing if he was like philosophically consistent, but he's one of these charlatans.
Yeah.
That you were speaking of before, using his powers of illusion to, increase his bank account at the expense of commoners like you and I.
Yeah. Yes.
But anyway, yeah, Scott Adams. Well, and he also talks about the one like movie screen, but two stories going on.
Boom. That's what I wanted to get to. That's exactly it.
Which is basically been thoroughly entrenched in our society because, like liberals see things one way and conservatives see things like the exact opposite way. The same events in two different ways, basically. So
Two wit, right? Same theater, same movie, same one audience, one theater, one movie. But like the audience is split because like half of us think that the Donald's just a incompetent boob who's bumbled his way into the presidency, and then there's Scott Adams says, but then the other half people think that he's like a master persuader or what have you.
Well, I think with the Donald Trump, it's not that like, when Donald Trump was speaking in 2016 in that primary, it's not that like, I don't think the conservatives voted for him because they recognize him as a master persuader. They just like that he was like roasting Hillary Clinton and like not
better said, yeah,
not acting like a chump basically on stage, like Bernie Sanders letting like being a cuck for the Democratic Party basically.
Yeah, that's better than what I said. That's exactly it. Scott Adams would call that half of the audience, being under the spell of a master persuader, but their reality is different. Their reality is that this man is blowing up. They hated Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
And I think like so deep is our entrenchment into like this bifurcation or this schizophrenia of the two movies, one screen going on that people think that because someone else is having the other movie that it's like they're evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably like a masterfully tailored phenomenon by our reptilian overlords.
You've got it. That's exactly what I'm driving at here. Man, you're way out ahead of me today, Brian. That is perfectly said. That's it. When you talk about living in a reality projected by the ruling class, this divide where people that vote for the Donald are crazy racists and people who vote for Joe Biden are like, blue-haired crazy people.
Snowflakes.
Yeah, I mean, that is killing us. But I wonder what you think, Brian, since you're on the ball today. Do you think it's wearing off? I mean, I just feel like that whole thing was incepted here specifically to prevent the Bernie Sanders policies from coming to fruition. But now we got the Donald talking about doing some of these various Bernie Sanders policies, buying bonds to bring down mortgage rates, banning institutional lenders from purchasing single-family homes, capping credit card rates at 10%. It's like they know, right, in the halls of power, they know that the Bernie Sanders policies are desperately needed, and that the absence of those Bernie Sanders policies is going to drive up wealth inequality, just like during the fall of Rome. And, so they're aware that they can only get away with it they seem to be aware. So I wonder, you think that thing's wearing off, or are we going to be in this crazy political divide for a long time?
Man, well, I think our reptilian overlords only need to cook up a controversial political incident, like this old Somalian thing in Minnesota, or or ICE, or what have you, to re-foment the two screens phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's really happening here. I think that I suspect that the Biden administration imported 8 to 12 illegal immigrants during that 4-year period to try to keep control of the system. Try to create Democratic voters, and I think that the Donald is dispatching ICE to terrorize your local community for the same reason, to try to keep the current political machine of which they are beneficiaries in place, right? They don't want to see the system in which they are powerful pass into the pages of history, and they don't want us to progress into the dawn of a brand new and beautiful system, because they won't be in control of that new system. And that really does that to me seems like what's happening here. And I just would love to believe that their ability to project reality for the rest of us is crumbling before their eyes.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump obviously isn't able to win the midterms by releasing the Epstein documents.
Sure, yeah.
So instead, he's just going to round up all the Somalians in Minnesota and send them back from whence they came.
Yeah, so anything like that, anything to distract. But I do think that the Donald's pivot to economic populism, which may be nothing but bluster, as so much of the Donald's proposals are, I do think it's a good sign that in Washington they can see that they're not going to be able to keep us at each other's throats for too much longer, and it's only a matter of time before the class consciousness that bubbled up during the Occupy Wall Street era in 2011 is going to come back. Those chickens are going to come back home to roost soon enough here, eh?
Yeah, well, I always just I get frustrated when the Donald announces, or has military operations in Venezuela, or announces that we're going to be having strikes on Iran and what have you. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like it would be impossible. Basically, there's just no way to satiate the masses, as well as deal with the realities of I don't know, the war machine, or the influence of Raytheon in Washington D.C. and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's crazy that we elect these people and then expect that they're actually going to be able to do the bidding of the people. It's just, I guess, I fall for it every time, I guess. But it's impossible to overestimate the power of, the deep state or the war machine, or the moneyed interests that actually run things.
I would have thought it would be far too shameful for the Donald to run on releasing the Epstein files and no new wars, only to reverse course abruptly on both of those things. So you're right. I fell for it too. But the Donald, with his uncouth mannerisms and he just seemed different. It seemed believable that he might actually enact some of these desperately needed policies. But it looks like he's going to be it looks like it's just more of the ruling elite keeping us contained within their matrix, for another cycle here.
Well, I mean, he did it seemed like we were going to have some strikes on Iran, and then I guess he called them off. So I don't think I ever heard Barack Obama or Joe Biden call off strikes on any foreign countries. I
have an example. This Barack Obama tried to take us into a full-scale war in Syria, only for the public to howl and protest, coming so soon off the heels of disastrous campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq. They had to roll back the engagement with Syria, trot out some propaganda, talk about remember the gassing of the Bashar al-Assad was supposed to be gassing his own people, and it was a big red line for Barack Obama. But yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. That's really it. Like, really, the Donald is not that different than Barack Obama. It's just not really different. It's interesting because the media can't really prosecute the Donald for being corrupt and running his Bitcoin scheme. They can't really prosecute the Donald for taking us into illegal wars. They can't because like Joe Biden does that, and Barack Obama does that, and George Bush does that, and Bill Clinton does that. They have to like get him for being rude or uncouth or unpolished or whatever. Or accuse him of being the next Hitler or an agent of Moscow, right? They can't really be like, well, these wars are completely illegal and unconstitutional, and the person's running a scam. I mean, there's no one more corrupt than Joe Biden. I mean, that dude personally ruined my life by making private student loan debts non-dischargeable in bankruptcy court, a unconscionable giveaway to the banks, who are the ones who are supposed to be adjudicating which loans are safe to make and which loans are too risky. Or that's in our society, we put that on the lender, but we're just going to insulate the lender from that. We don't have to get into why that's a disaster. But also Joe Biden removed the cap on credit card interest rates in Delaware. So like all the credit card companies reestablish their corporate headquarters in Delaware, so there would be no, it's like there are just so many scams involving the Biden fight. I mean, so like the Burisma thing, Hunter Biden. There's just so much corruption and so much graft surrounding the Biden family that the media can't really hit the Donald for his ridiculous Trump coin scam.
Well, ultimately, I think the point is that electing politicians only has so much effect, and the real important thing is, like, if you want to change the world, it's not really by electing people, it's by like fomenting something in the masses.
Yes, that's right. You get on the podcast, fire up the microphones, and try your best to entertain our vaunted system of failure audience to the best of our ability.
Yeah,
we got to agitate for open-mindedness. And not to be closed-minded when Tucker and Buckley are droning on about demons or hidden dimensions or whatever. People tending to be abducted by aliens. So yeah, that's a good way to wrap up put a little bow on this podcast, eh, Brian?
Alrighty.
All right, folks. Well, as always, at the end of the show, I like to invite you all to pay Brian and me a little visit over at systemfailure.org. There you can read the weekly essays written by yours truly, and if you're so inclined, you can sign up to receive those weekly essays each and every Sunday morning, right there in your email inbox. A couple years into writing a weekly essay each and every week, I'm starting to feel like proud of the product, so I hope you'll jump on and check it out. Furthermore, if you want to get in touch with Brian and me and let us know about your alien abduction experiences, or let us know why we're barking mad, why you can accomplish that tidy feat over on the About page simply by clicking on the appropriate name. Alrighty, folks, have a beautiful week. We'll be back next Monday with a regularly scheduled for your listening pleasure.
Alright, see ya.